prepared itself to ensure that services to the public remain uninterrupted and that the daily work of government to move South Africa in an upward trajectory continued. We want to thank those employees in all sectors who made sure that people have access to service points and services. Today was a normal working day, as we pronounced yesterday. Friday's activities were a demonstration of a strengthened democracy where citizens are engaged in shaping the public discourse. Today's actions demonstrated a maturing democracy with guaranteed freedom of association, speech, and movement. However, in exercising these rights, we need to be mindful of doing so in a responsible manner without infringing on the rights of others. South Africa has strong complementary institutions in place, such as Parliament, our judiciary, the Chapter 9 institutions which safeguard our constitutional rights. Our democracy is a system of rules of law, not by individuals. These institutions exist to ensure that every individual is protected and enjoys the hard-fought-for freedom. As we celebrate Freedom Month, let us remember where we come from as a country. Many lives, like that of Solomon Mahlangu, whose death was commemorated yesterday, were sacrificed so that we can enjoy the freedom we have today. South Africa has unparalleled gains since the advent of democracy, and as a nation, we have achieved a lot in such a small space of time. We are able to transcend beyond the hurtful past of legislated oppression and racial discrimination. Through our commitment to democratic principles and accountability, we were able to build a better country together. The National Democratic Plan is our blueprint of where we want to be in 2013, and every citizen must be an active participant in its implementation. We therefore have a responsibility to jealously guard our young democracy. We should continue to raise our challenges through the appropriate platforms that are provided for in the Constitution and within the confines of the law. The Constitution guarantees freedom of expression for all citizens. It also guarantees the right to dignity for all South Africans, including President Jacob Zuma. As we uphold the dictates of our Constitution, let us do so mindful of the fact that it is binding to all of us. No one has more rights than the other. It is therefore our responsibility to uphold the spirit of the Constitution to the letter. South Africans will have another opportunity to mark in 2019, and through this free and fair electoral process, South Africans will have another opportunity to make their mark in 2019, and through this free and fair electoral process, citizens can make their voices heard. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Minister. Colleagues, I'm certain that you would like to ask questions. I'm going to ask that when you do ask your question, you state the name of the media organization that you represent. What I'll do is I will invite questions from Victoria first, and while you ready yourselves in Cape Town, I cannot see by a show of hands if there are any questions. I'll take the first three, starting 1, 2, and 3. Then we'll so.
Thank you very much, Ministers. Thulas Simelane from ENCA. Minister Dlodlo, if you would care to comment on the ratings downgrade by Fitch becoming the second, and what it means in terms of how we are perceived by international investors and these organizations that we sign up to, pay up to be rated by, yet end up not playing according to the rules that we agreed to, and when we get downgraded, we cry foul and we call them names. So if you could comment jointly on that issue of the downgrade, but also how we have behaved, because we actually signed up to these ratings agencies. And then my second question is to Minister Mahlobo. Part of, in the mix of everything that has happened, is the circumstances around President Jacob Zuma's cabinet reshuffle. And part of the argument the president presented was a dodgy intelligence report. You're the Minister of State Security. how does this come about that we have? Where did this intelligence report come from? Who compiled it? Have you even bothered to find out who compiled it? And what does it say about our state that you've got rogue elements compiling, intelligence reports that end up having such a divisive impact on our society? Are you investigating at all? Those are all the questions I really have about this climate where it seems intelligence agencies are playing a particular role politically. Thank you.
Can I take the second hand of back?
Okay. Good evening, ministers. My name is Aseri Ndlovu from Tshwane Capital. Minister, I hear at the beginning you said the marches were peaceful. I don't know if maybe you perhaps not informed that there was one protest, not really a march, there was a protest in Saxonwald that didn't end up peacefully, as you say that the marches were peaceful. Do you regard what happened in Saxonwald peacefully, or you just don't have information? Then, Minister Mahlobo, can you please, just to supplement the question by Tula Sizwe, clarify exactly where did that letter come from? Because it was a bit dodgy, as he said, due to the issue that the letter, the recall of the minister included the recall of a deputy minister that was not even with the minister by that time. The information Tshwane Capital has is that the deputy minister was not even in London, was not even with the minister by that time. So can you please help us with that report? Thank you.
Good afternoon, Ministers. Barry Bateman, Eyewitness News. Minister, I appreciate your comments regarding acknowledging the rights of citizens to participate in peaceful and lawful protests. But I refer to your last section of the statement where you specifically make the point about the elections in 2019, where people have then an opportunity through the free and fair electoral process to make their voices heard. The central call of today's marches was for President Jacob Zuma to step down. Is this statement an attempt to try and dissuade South Africans from continuing with this rolling mass action against the president, essentially calling him for step down, or the ANC to remove him? Thank you.
Thank you. Can I take some questions from Cape Town, if you can limit it to 3, so that we can respond holistically to all the questions. Can I take 3 from Cape Town, please?
Thanks, DG. I will start with you, Maria.
Hi, good afternoon, Marianne Morton, Daily Maverick. It's a question in connection to the MK contingent outside Luthuli House. Was that a legal gathering, first of all? Second of all, even if it was a legal gathering, will the police, what steps, let me rephrase it, what steps will be taken against that gathering which has broken Section 8 of the Gatherings Act, which bans any semblance to uniforms of military or police? Thank you.
Yes, over to you, ma'am. Do you still have a question?
I'm Jenny Evans from News 24. Could you please give us an indication of how many people were arrested and how many people were injured during the protest, to your knowledge? Thank you.
Alicia Makinana from City Press. Ministers, are you able to tell us how many people were out on the streets today in all the cities where the protests are taking place? Thank you.
That's it for now. Thank you. Back to you.
Thank you. I will give Mr. Dodo an opportunity to start and respond to the questions that were raised.
Thank you very much, DG. I think I'll start by answering the second question on the marches, and that I said they were peaceful. Largely, they were peaceful. And when I read my statement, I made it very clear that with minimal clashes reported. So Much as they were peaceful, there were clashes, but minimal, unlike what were used to and what we have seen over time. How do we perceive the downgrade? And a statement was issued today, and I think let's concentrate on what the statement says, and wait for an opportunity for the Minister for Finance to take us through the process as to what the feeling is from Treasury with regards to that. But I can say that part of the reasons that were given really were based on, in my view, a little on the subjective side, in the sense that the cabinet reshuffle did not spell a decline or a possible decline in governance. It did not spell necessarily an increase in corruption within the public sector. But all of these agencies, including government, all have their own mandates and responsibilities. And all of those responsibilities that we all have together, we need one another in ensuring that we work together to ensure that whatever it is that comes out of these processes are what it is that we want to ensure that we put our country on a proper trajectory in terms of economic growth and inclusive growth, for that matter. The one that was asked by Barry on the 2019 elections and whether this statement does not necessarily dissuade, it does not in any way. It is pointing fact, it is true, and all that I was saying and all that we are saying is that the elections in 2019 will be the deciding factor as to whether a government remains or a government goes. So that's all that I was saying. It did not necessarily mean that I was dissuading anybody from that. Yeah, I think those were the three questions that were raised with me. It was the downgrade, it was whether the marches really were peaceful, and the 2019 elections. Thank you.
Minister Mashlob, I thought you would attend to the intelligence questions and then the incidents apart.
Okay. Well, thank you very much, Chair, and thanks for the question from Tula Sizwe. Well, Tula Sizwe, I wish I could help you. Firstly, let's not try to conflate issues. One, the prerogative for the President to reshuffle his ministers, there is nothing untoward because it's a constitutional prerogative. Those who believe in our constitutional democracy, President has not committed any crime. He invites people to serve in his executive. Whatever he chooses, then he decided to disinvite people to participate. Secondly, we are having a wrong expectation. When there was a meeting, like it has been reported, the ANC has done press briefings and other parties. Well, I don't sit in those meetings. And I've not seen the document that we are claiming. Because those who are actually trying to claim they have a document, they know that if there's an intelligence document and it has some issues, how should you deal with it? Why will people, if they have an intelligence document, one, they don't disclose who gave them? Because those who have spoken, not a single one of them said, I have a copy of an intelligence document that I was given in a meeting, who's the author, then the author should be able to deal with those issues. And if that intelligence report is being actually purported, like other people were just doing some flyers that we've seen in the publications, why don't they formally present a report to the Minister of State Security, or actually present it to our intelligence, Inspector General for Intelligence? But because it's a matter of national interest, we'll look at it. We've asked our team to look at what is called intelligence report. But more importantly, those who claim of the intelligence report, can they be able to assist to come to us as law enforcement? We've received an intelligence report, where does it come from? Then ultimately we should be able to do an investigation. But let's not try to create an impression. The ANC responsible officials have issued a statement, and whatever the other views of other people, will not be able to dwell into that. But more importantly, I never sat in that meeting of the people where they claim they were actually given a report, and they reported that they actually even failed to actually put it on the table, that this is the report that we're given. At that point, we'll be able to deal with
Thank you. Thank you very much. First question was the numbers of people were out in the streets today. It's plus minus 60,000. Plus minus 60,000 people were on the streets based on the report which we've received from the police. For instance, in Pretoria, we had 15,000. Johannesburg, plus minus 10. Pietermaritzburg, plus minus 500. Durban, 7,000 to 8,000 people. Cape Town, 10,000. All of them are plus minus, please. Mbombela, 500 people. Port Elizabeth, 1,500. Bloemfontein, 2,000. Northern Cape, plus minus 500. Now, then there's so that's what those are the numbers of people who came out in marches on this day, and the question is numbers of people injured and numbers of people arrested. So far, we have 2 people who were taken to hospital in Johannesburg with slight injuries. And then we have, of course, in Pietermaritzburg, we have 1 person who was arrested. And then the rest of the country, except for a report we don't have here, Yase Limpopo, is it Seshego? Seshego, where we saw some acts of violence. Unfortunately, I don't have that report, so I wouldn't know how many people were arrested or even injured. The reference to peaceful marches to Saxon World, yes, probably. I don't know if the minister saw it, but we saw it on television. We have not as yet received a report from the police about what exactly transpired at Saxon World. Safe to say, yes, there was a protest. Whether it was peaceful or not, I would not know, but I am aware that at some point there was some form of intervention, and that's the last report I received as we were coming in here. The conduct of MKMVA. Let me start by saying there is no term called legal or illegal in terms of the laws we have. It's about whether the gathering was authorized or unauthorized. I think we should start there. Then secondly, we should say that in my understanding, there was no march from a Luthuli House. What was at Luthuli House was a gathering of people who, well, pronounced that they would be there to defend or protect the building, Luthuli House. Whether that march was authorized or unauthorized, I would not know at this point. Safe to say, we saw a number of marches today which proceeded peacefully, which were protected by the police, in spite of the fact that they had not been granted the permission to do that, right? I think that is very important. So I don't want to be diverted and focus the attention on Luthuli House. I'm speaking here now as a minister in government, but I do want to say that there are several of those which happened today countrywide which were not authorized by government. But precisely because of the nature of the situation out there, how just the volatility of the situation, as government, we allowed some of these to go ahead because of the sensitivity of the issues. You may want to raise a question as to whether it was correct to do so, whether or not, whether we were not setting a precedent. We probably did. But because there was a lot of confusion last night, you'll recall that there was a time when we said, well, permission had not been granted because we had not received applications. Then others were saying, no, there was permission granted. Precisely because of that confusion, we allowed for all the marches and the gatherings to continue this morning. Now, and therefore, it's important for me to emphasize that I don't know what happened in Luthuli House, whether it was authorized or not, but I do know that some of what we secured, we protected, were marches which were not authorized. But because the law enforcement agencies have a responsibility to protect all South Africans, irrespective of which political organizations they come from. And we also had to consider the fact that we have a constitution which asserts the rights of South Africans. So we then said, fine, because of the confusion which was there about whether people had applied, whether people had been given permission to do so or not, we allowed some of these gatherings to go ahead. So it was Cape Town which raised the matter. So I would not know then whether Luthuli House, MKMVA in particular, did have the express authority to gather there or not.
Thank you very much, Ministers. Colleagues in media, can I just say that this is an unfolding situation. So the preliminary data that the Minister reported on just now is a reflection of the data that has been collected as of now. So as you understand, the marches are dispersing, and this information will be updated during the course of the evening. Can I then?
They are quick follow-up down to Cape Town.
Can I then take the next round of questions? I'm going to start here again in Tswane. There's a gentleman who indicated that he wants to speak first. He's wearing the purple shirt, followed by the second gentleman here, and I see you want to do a follow-up. And then we'll give Cape Town an opportunity. If you don't mind, I can only handle one at a time because I can't see the screens. So you're first.
Good day, Sipho Stillman from SABC TV News. Well, seeing the protest today, a lot of what came out of it are concerns regarding corruption, that is state capture, and a large Gupta influence over government, and that with the reshuffling of the cabinet, the Treasury is now at risk or open to looting, as some were saying, by the Guptas and the friends of government. So just as the sitting cabinet and the government, I mean, you have thousands of people, you may say 60, but if you look at it, it's more than that. You have these people, South Africans, going to the streets and they're saying these are the issues that we have. What is the response to that? Are you going to look into any of these to just ease the concerns that are out there? Thank you.
Sir.
Kuniso from Creative Kuniso, freelancing. My question is that even the ruling party says that it's for the first time the president has taken the personal decision. Is this the beginning of the president? Can we prepare ourselves for another personal decision that is going to be taken by the president? If that is no, can the ministers of South Africa being shaken that if they from now on can they stay uncomfortable or comfortable being scared that the president can reshuffle them in the future? Are they going to perform their duties in a free role, or how can we prepare ourselves? What's going to happen? What's going to follow on this?
Thulasizwe again from ENCA. Minister Mahlobo, with due respect, I don't feel you adequately responded to my question. You are the Minister of State Security in this country. There's a suggestion that there's a document that purports to be an intelligence document. And we've heard so many accounts, including from people inside the governing African National Congress, and they've not been, their claims have not been refuted, that the president did rely on this intelligence, so-called intelligence document, is in the official statement of the party that deploys you to government. And all I'm asking is, perhaps to simplify, is there an intelligence document? Did President Jacob Zuma rely on this document? Where did this document come from? And perhaps to ask you directly, did you hand it over to him? Did it come from you? Did it come from the State Security Agency? If it didn't, why do you not seem to be wanting to take interest to say, where does this document come from that has informed the president's decisions leading to these divisions? If Minister Mapisa Ngakula were to hear that there's a National Defense Force, I imagine that she would take interest to know which one are we talking about, because the one I know is the SANDF, which is my responsibility. So please, can you address this issue of this document and not simply deflect by saying that, you know, those who have it have not referred it to you? I imagine you should be taking interest.
Thank you. Going to, I understood Cape Town to be saying these are follow-up questions. So I'm going to allow, if you can take 3 from Cape Town. If you have new questions, please start preparing those for the final round, which is coming. Cape Town.
Thanks, Jehovah, to be honest with you.
I'm sorry from City Press again. It's quite a covered me, but Minister Mahlobo, you spoke of meetings, people who sat in meetings with reports and so on. Who are these people? Who are you talking about? And are you saying, for the record, you know nothing about this report, this intelligence report that led to the, well, cabinet reshuffle or some ministers being recalled from their roadshow? Can you just give us facts, names, times, and whether you know nothing about this report? And what have you done? I mean, you say you're looking into it. What does that mean? Thank you.
Marianne.
Hi, Marianne again. Okay, so we don't know, or you indicated it's not known whether the NKVA gathering outside Lutuli House was authorized or not. The second part of my question was, will there be action taken against NKVA for breach of Section 8 of the Gatherings Act, which expressly prohibits the wearing of apparel at any public gathering that resembles any of the uniforms of our country's security services? The second follow-up question is, I'm not sure the source specifically of the figures in terms of attendance that you have just provided, but I'm struck by some disparities, because the official police figures here in Cape Town, or let me rephrase, the police figures here in Cape Town range from well over 20,000 to 50,000. And those are the figures that police have given here in Cape Town. I'm not sure, maybe it's the distance to Pretoria and things got lost, maybe? Thank you.
Back to you, Pretoria.
I did preface the comments I made with preliminary data. We haven't got all of the information in as yet on the number of people that are gathered in the various centers. When the operational reports are concluded this evening, we'll be able to give a proper update. I understood that the aren't any new questions. In essence, the only questions really here are around the intelligence reports and the gatherings. Are there new questions for Victoria so that I can take new questions? So is that a new question? Okay.
I will. Okay, again, Aserin Logo from Tswane Capital. I just want to quickly ask ministers here. There is a problem here that I'm encountering with the information that you came to provide now. It seems like you came to give us information while you don't have that much information of the events unfolding. Because now there's a reporter that from Tswane Capital that just gave me sent me a message that in Sexton, as we speak, things are bad. Rubber bullets are being fired and all those things. And that information, I believe that it was supposed to be provided to us by yourselves, guys, after gathering all the information. And the issue of Seshego. In Seshego, it's not about the so-called anti-Zuma march. It's, some call it xenophobic attacks because they are fighting against some foreign nationals there. And the information we got in hand now is that so far 2 people has been killed. Probably it happened in the morning. So I'm just shocked and amazed that you ministers doesn't have this very important information at this time. Thank you.
Is there any other question? Because that wasn't exactly a question, it was more of a comment. Can I then give the ministers an opportunity to just respond?
You just said yourself that these are activities or things that are unfolding as we speak, and you have just received the information. I think what we need to understand is we're coming here to offer what we have in terms of what has been consolidated so far. But the final consolidation, as you can see, the Minister of Police is not here, the generals are not here. At some point, I think there will be a consolidation of information that will be presented to all of you. So, ungagani asir, don't be naughty. On the number of people, again, I think the question has been repeated many times. As I said, consolidation of information, the DG has said that we've come here with preliminary information. We're just presenting to you what has been availed to us. So as we progress, tomorrow again there'll be more information coming through. And if people want other interviews with respect to more information and an update on what we have been able to put together, that can be arranged through the GCIS as well. Mr. Mahlo.
No, thanks, Comrade Ayanda. I think Comrade Ayanda is correct. You know, when we came here, Minister Lolo and Comrade Ayanda, when we came here, you can't have an expectation. One, our message is clear, that as government, we respect the right enshrined in our constitution for people to voice their issues, the manner they've done today. And today, the message is to congratulate those people, that they've exercised their right, they've raised issues. But equally so, we are also saying thank you to the law enforcement agencies that have ensured that whatever rights that people have and the different views they hold, they were able to do it in a peaceful way. Despite the fact that in the build-up to these marches, we've seen a lot of incitement, statements that have been being made, and the incidents that the minister refers to as minor clashes. We congratulate the law enforcement agencies and those people who were leading there, because if there was no cooperation, because remember the tensions, there are very different views on the issues that we are raising. It does not mean those people who are raising the issues, all South Africans, they share. South Africans have different views on this issue. That's the beauty of our democracy. The situation in Saxon World, you know that it started unfolding this afternoon. The time the ministers sat here, you know that there were different groups that went there. Let's monitor the situation. But ourselves as government, we condemn any acts of violence and intimidation. And worse, people actually try to get into private space of individuals. Because we have to get a report later on whether people were going to the Saxon World. Irrespective, people have views about certain people, but the right to privacy, no infringement to your right is very important. Ours is to condemn that when we had a very successful day and people are going to different destinations and we're hoping that there will be no looting, no vandalization or any person getting injured. Hence, that's why the visibility and deployment on the ground. The situation in Seshego will get a report. If you have your own scoop now that there are developments there, but immediately you say that it says some element around Zinopopa related, allow us to be able to investigate. But if there is information, as a citizen too, we have a duty to assist us so that we are able to bring those people into book. Well, it's unfortunately because there's a temptation always that we don't run away from answering questions, but we're discussing about the situation for today. But then there's an interesting news probably to write, to say reshuffling, how are we feeling? I think the matter has been dealt with. No one can come and claim that President has broken the law to invite people to his cabinet or to actually disinvite people to his government. Where has he broken the law? When President ran his own organizational processes to the SABC, I'm a member of the NEC, but I don't belong to the officials. How should I speak about a meeting that I never sat in? It's the biggest expectation you have. It is a biggest expectation. I'm not a member of the officials. I only sit in the National Working Committee. The meeting that you are referring to, the people that have came up and said President has shared information, those are the people that must be able to assist you. In their own confidential information, they chose to go out and they claim certain reports. Have they furnished these reports to the nation and say, this is the original report I got in my confidential meeting with the other leaders? Secondly, you have to be able to assist yourselves. There is no one intelligence services in this country. Look at the Constitution, there are 3 intelligence services. There is state security, there is crime intelligence, and defense intelligence. To suggest that the Minister of State Security should be the one that should actually be bothered about these particular issues. Firstly, I've seen the statements. I've seen people actually claiming to have reports. Not a single person that has been claiming the reports that you think you have in your possession, that have said, I've got a report from the President. And on the basis of that report, you can be in a position to deal with it. You have an expectation that is actually misplaced. We have individuals, they sit in a meeting, discuss their issues, for whatever reason or whatever motive, they bring the discussion to the fore. Even when you are asking them questions, you don't ask them, where do you get this report? Who gave you? Is this the same report that is being purported to have been in a meeting? We have not done that. And you want me to answer to meetings I never sat in? It's very problematic to answer in a meeting you don't sit in. But ultimately, because it's a matter, it's an issue of interest for those that have interest, as I've said that I've asked my people to look at that report that is being floated, whether it's an intelligence report or not. That's the statement I'm prepared to make. But don't insinuate that I'm sitting in meetings like I'm listening to what officials they say, or I can see what documents are being circulated. Because those who have chosen to take the nation into confidence in their confidential meetings, they should have placed everything on the table. And if there's a thinking that intelligence services are behaving in a manner that is untoward, there is a remedies in our country. That's why our democrats have the balance and checks. And you go to the relevant institutions, and when you arrive in these relevant institutions, as well the believers on constitutional democracy, they will be able to assist. But I want to assist you. Unfortunately, I never sat in a meeting. I can't speak about it. I'm not the spokesperson of that meeting. And the document that you are actually saying is being circulated is a document that we'll look at. But to say where it is coming from, until we have done our investigations, we'll not be able to comment on it. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Just to say that, to add on to what Minister Mahlobo just said about intelligence reports, I think it's important for us to remember that it is not the first time that South Africa has had a similar kind of incident where a report generated outside of government institutions has been seen being, used without necessarily verifying the contents of that report. Minister Mahlobo says he's not seen the report. He says the report was not generated by the National Intelligence Agencies. Neither was it generated by Defense Intelligence and Crime Intelligence. Because of the many intelligence organizations we have in the country, which are not necessarily intelligence agencies which are accountable to the state, Minister Mahlobo now has a responsibility of going out and verify whether in fact there is an intelligence report or not, and what the contents of that report are, but also to check who actually generated the information which is contained in that report. I think we should allow the intelligence services that space, allow the minister that space to conduct that investigation which he has just mentioned. Now, I was then saying it's not the first time that we've had this kind of situation. We've seen it not once, not twice, probably thrice since 1994, where certain people, ordinary citizens, decided to simply generate information which is a so-called intelligence report about other citizens. So please, let's just give space to those who are dealing with this matter to conclude it. There's another matter about whether there will be consequences for members of MKMVA who were gathered at Luthuli House. I would imagine that the police, being the ones who are responsible for law enforcement, that they would investigate all of those cases, including this particular one, and that if there's anyone who's broken the law in Luthuli House, that there will be consequences. The last matter is again that of Saxon Weld. Is it Saxon? Saxon Weld. All right, I understand the gentleman is being very mischievous. Because you are sitting there and you are saying you are receiving reports, and we are sitting here.
It might be receiving intelligence.
Well, and we are sitting here in front. We are supposed to be fielding questions, and you expect us to field questions on matters which have just been drawn to your attention. So the information you are sitting with there is information which, unfortunately, we don't have in our possession. However, as the minister said, citizens have a right to privacy. Citizens have a right, and all citizens of the country have a right to protection. And that protection, of course, should be guaranteed by the South African Police Service. That is why we saw marches, whether authorized or unauthorized, which were being secured by the South African Police Service. So if there's been some chaos at Saxon World, or any violent activity for that matter, we would expect that the law will take its course, that the police will go in the first instance to protect whoever occupies the house, whether South African or not, in the same way that we've been preaching against acts of so-called xenophobia, that the police have a responsibility to protect everybody who is here in this country. So the police would have to do that, and I would want to assume that they are doing it. And that is why you have that incident report now, which talks to rubber, tear gas and whatever else. It's because they are exercising their right to protect all citizens of this country.
Just on the...
Are you done? I think I'm done.
Yeah. No, thanks. On the question by Kinisone, I think it should assist you just to check the powers of the president in law. The president has not broken the constitution. If you check in terms of how the president actually constitutes cabinet, go to section 91 of our constitution. Those powers are clearly defined. And those of us as a nation, we have chosen the path of constitutional democracy. He has exercised his prerogative. And there's nothing illegal about that. Those of us that when he exercises his prerogative, should we be feeling scared that one day he can be able to change us? What deployees? If the president says this morning come, whether he gives me a reason or no reason, and say it's time that you leave cabinet, that's his decision. And we should be able to respect it. In the same manner, those of us, the time when President constituted this fifth administration in terms of the national executive, were able to be invited by him. We never asked him reasons. Why are you inviting me to your executive? We took our deployments and said in our best of our abilities, we'll actually discharge the responsibility in terms of the constitution and the other laws. I don't see any reasons, those that are deployed by the organization, we understand what is our expectation. The issues we are raising that are being raised by South Africans, those are the issues that it is within their right to raise the issues, because this is the vibrance of our democracy. The issues they're raising around corruption, corruption is an issue that affects all of us, whether private sector or public sector, and it must be dealt as such. But equally so, we can't actually be claiming that there's corruption when we have created institutions. Those of us who have evidence around issues of corrupt activities, let's work with law enforcement agencies and deal with it. It's a cancer. It finds itself at in terms of various facets, deal with it so that as a world phenomenon, it doesn't rob us of the resources that are there. It does not necessarily mean that the other people agree with some of the issues that are being raised. But as government, our position is very clear. They have the right to raise issues, but certain of the specific issues, government is on record to say we've put institutional mechanism. Our institutional framework is very strong. Even in the last about 48 hours, you know that there's been an announcement by the National Prosecuting Authority how successfully they've been able to deal with some of these issues within the public service that is running into millions of rands. But equally so, our other institutions that we've created as a state to deal with private sector corruption, the work that is being done by our Computations Commission to deal with fundamental issues, I think issues are being dealt with, but as South Africans, we need to be more vigilant so that we can be able to hold government accountable. The other issues, you know that those are the issues that are in the public domain and there are other processes in government. But as I've said, I don't want a minister for communication to deal with other issues. But personally, as a member in cabinet, I understand the law. The president acted within the law. If one day he says, I want to disappoint you, it will be within his prerogative. As long as I'm actually being assigned we believe that all of us will do our job to the best of our abilities.
Can you just correct that? I did disappoint you.
With due respect, you're spending more time talking about the president's prerogative than you spent talking about this intelligence report, sir. With due respect, for instance, you didn't answer whether the president got this report from you. And answers such as it didn't come from inside government had to come from the Minister of Defense. So I think you're spending more time talking about meetings that you don't sit in, questions that I did not ask personally, questions about the president's prerogative, questions I didn't go there, I didn't venture there. I wanted you to address this intelligence, so-called intelligence report that has been owned up to by so many people. So many people are talking about it in public, not in meetings, not in closed meetings of ANC officials. We are told the SACP has lodged a complaint with the Inspector General of Intelligence. I would have expected that information to come from you, to say, for instance, the SACP has come with this information. You're not coming with that information, yet you're spending so much time talking about prerogative. With due respect, sir, that was not my question about prerogative.
But I think we are getting me wrong.
Can I just answer the issue of prerogative? You did not ask the question around the president's prerogative, and his response was not directed at you. It was directed at the person that asked the question. So I think we need to answer questions that have been asked by everybody, and that's where he even did say Qiniso, because I hadn't heard his name initially. I will give it to the Minister for Defense to respond to some of the other issues, because the ones that you have raised. Yes, we're coming to the questions that you have raised because they have to do with the criminal justice system.
Well, there's a matter raised here on state capture. Just to say that and remind colleagues that this matter is contained in the matter you are referring to is a state capture report of the public protector, and that it's very difficult for us to comment on any of the matters related to this, precisely because all of us are aware that this report has been taken for a review by those who are implicated, who are if you want, those who are said to have been captured, so-called captured by whoever. Now, it's difficult for us then to comment on a matter which is a subject of the court, which is a sub judice matter, if you like. Now, the last matter is that of, again, I want to go back to the matter of the intelligence report. Somehow, all intelligence reports which have been talked about in the past are reports which would be out there mentioning names of people, making serious allegations against some politicians. And of course, people have had to go out and investigate the veracity of the allegations contained in the report or not. And when information has come out, those matters have been attended to in a manner that is decisive, in a manner that explains the issues and how this whole thing, or where it originated. I mean, and I'm sure as a journalist you are aware that since 1994, I think I've mentioned, we've seen 4, 5, 6 reports. It's not the first time that there's been a report whose identity is mysterious or anonymous. We've seen it before, and those reports have made serious. It started with Meiring, the so-called Meiring report, by the way, which alleged that the then Chief of Staff of the Defence Force, of the South African National Defence Force, was planning a coup to remove the President of the Republic and the first Commander-in-Chief of the Republic of South Africa, President Nelson Mandela. There was an investigation conducted, and it was proven beyond reasonable doubt that the report was a report generated by some anonymous people who are mischievous, who were bent on destroying that which we were building in South Africa. So, and then the other reports, there was a Browse Mole report, which also contained serious allegations against some of the politicians and against ordinary South African citizens. And there too, that matter was dealt with decisively. Now, what was the purpose of the briefing today? The purpose of the briefing in the main was to say to South Africans, thank you, South Africans, for exercising your rights in a responsible manner. Thank you, South African Police Service, for ensuring that South Africans continue to feel safe. And I think that was the purpose of the briefing. All the other issues are side issues, which can be discussed at some point, which can be responded to later and go into more detail at that point. But for now, the issue was the minister responsible for the government communication services convened this media briefing to really say to South Africans, thank you, South Africans. There was a state of panic and anxiety from a number of people in the country, perhaps even the majority of people in the country. What will be the outcome of these marches today? Particularly, there were those which were meant to counter the others. And there was a state of anxiety even as we woke up this morning. But South Africans being South Africans, in spite of the divisions we see right now, which are coming out to the fore, South Africans exercised that right in a manner that was peaceful. We still demonstrated that we are a rainbow nation of Madiba, and that, of course, if there is better dialogue amongst ourselves and better understanding of the South Africa we want to build, if we don't talk past one another, we can do better. I think that's the message which was coming out today, that we're talking past one another, we're beginning to miss the point about what the issues are, and hence this mood to want to defend yourselves against the other. But the point is, South Africans, up until people, in fact, one thing which struck me about the march which was here at the assembly at the Union building was when that young man towards the end, after the singing of the national anthem, as people were dispersing, he then says, make sure that you pick up papers and whatever. There's no littering, in other words, allowed. Pick up whatever debt you are leaving where you were standing. That for me was an exercise of absolute responsibility. So I think that minister, without losing touch with what we were trying, the message we were trying to drive home here, let's just close the media briefing by saying, indeed, we were communicating to South Africans, all South Africans, across the political divide, across racial lines, South Africans, to say thank you for exercising that right in a responsible manner as citizens of this country.
Thank you, Minister. There's a question on treasury risk that was not responded to. There were, I think, 5 or 6 members of President Zuma's executive that were relieved of their responsibilities. And we seem to be concentrating only on 2 people. And we are talking about a government now that is going to be more corrupt, the treasury is going to be more at risk, there will be more looting, and everything will escalate into what we might call a bad state of affairs. I think I will speak for those that were recently appointed, because I am one of them. We don't bring corruption as we come into the executive. We were not appointed and briefed before that to say your responsibility is to come and loot or assist in looting, if there is such a thing. And I think it is unfair on the men and women that have been appointed to tar them with a brush that taints their integrity. Untested, but it is out there, and we all talk about bad people that have been appointed by President Zuma. And the good ones are only 2 that were relieved of their duties as minister or deputy minister. I really don't think that is fair. Because the fiscal policy of the country, for instance, if we were to talk about the treasury, has not changed. In the last few days, it was only the DG that has resigned. And if I had it correctly, he had even resigned before the reshuffle. And that's if I have it correctly. If I do not, you will forgive me and you will correct me. So the staff remains there that was supporting previous ministers of finance. The protocols of the Treasury are in place, they are intact. And so are the systems and the general processes for decision making and stuff like that. They are in place. The governance protocols are in place. Nothing except faces has changed. So let us give the ministers that have been newly appointed, if anything, the benefit of doubt. That they will exercise their responsibility to the best of their abilities in service of the people of South Africa. And I think I say that because I am one of those that is new, and it is not a nice thing to have your integrity questioned when you have not proved people otherwise. So I would really request that and say all systems in the Treasury have not changed. It is only faces that have changed. No legislation, no protocols, no governance frameworks, no systems, nothing except faces has changed. Thank you.
Well, thanks, Chair. I think let me respond to Thulasizwe because, and thanks Minister Dlondo for correcting him. Because you can't insinuate when I said in a meeting I'm responding to things around issues of prerogative, personal decision. Let's not do that. Secondly, I don't want to engage in a dialogue, but you can't choose how should I respond. You are speaking about people who spoke about a meeting they attended, a confidential meeting. And it's not a hearsay. I was not part of a meeting. And it's on record. Our duty is to educate and inform citizens. How should I be a spokesperson of a meeting that I never sat in? Secondly, even the meeting of the ANC officials with the members of the Communist Party. I'm not a member of the officials. I don't sit in that meeting. We are asking, as we have said, we've heard about the report, we will want to investigate it. But we are also not asking the people who are speaking about the report to say, did you get a copy? Where is that particular copy? So that when we actually do the investigations, we are able to deal with those particular issues. Then you can then insist that we should respond, even actually try to interrupt the manner that you want us to respond. Let's be decent and allow us to actually communicate with citizens. And they have the capacity.
So just a question, did the president get it from you?
Thank you. You're interrupting the minister. Thank you. You are interrupting the minister and you're wrapping. You are
It's a question
interrupting.
I did ask long ago. Minister, did you give it to the president? That one question. And honestly, the record will show this question was asked. And that's, look, if you don't want to answer it, then let's just say so. Because it was asked.
Chairperson, thank you. It's very unfortunate that you behave this unprofessional way. Very unprofessional. We allow you to ask questions and we don't run away from answering questions. Why should I answer a question of a meeting I never attended? Do I know the minutes of the meeting and the documents that were circulated? We are failing in your responsibility to say, those who say we're given an intelligence report, this is a copy we're given. And which intelligence service is it coming from? Why do you want to actually create your own narrative? What is the motive? Even the ability just to be patient that I actually finish speaking. I've answered, I'm not actually here to satisfy you. My duty is to be able to speak to the nation that those who attended a confidential meeting, for whatever motive they've spoken about their own meeting, they've raised issues of intelligence, and they have not given us a report of their meeting. We just see a report flying, and as a responsible state, because citizens are talking about that report, we've said on record we will look at it. But we're also asking the question to say, what is the motive? Why do you go around and brand a report and actually not bring it to actually the Inspector General? And we have said there are those balancing checks, so we're going to be able to do that. And that's the official response. I'm not going to be answering any other question and entering into a dialogue again, because that is not actually the brief for this particular briefing.
Tula Sizwe, I think the question has been answered even by yourself, in the sense that you have alerted me, for instance, who did not know that this is now before the Inspector General for Intelligence. And I think let's wait for that process, and maybe that process will give us a more convincing answer, because that's a body that oversees the work of the intelligence community. I'm sure we're fine with that. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Ministers. Thank you for a heartfelt media briefing. I just in closing want to again underline what the Ministers brought us here today, which was to really commend South Africans on a very successful and peaceful series of marches around the country, and an expression of democracy at work in South Africa. I think we can end just by saying that indeed together we can move South Africa forward in partnership. Thank you.
Sorry, DJ.
We're done. Thank you. We're done.
Sorry, I've been waiting.
Thank you very much.
What is environmental health?
In Section 24 of the Constitution, the environmental right has a second part, which is to encourage people to be active citizens and gives us the right to participate in politics.